Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final round of the Rutgers-University-Camden Ethics Bowl. This match is between Hive Mind and Socrates Money. I am Michael D'Italia, and I will moderate this session. I would like to introduce Berto, who is here to help hand out materials and keep time. Would also like to thank the Office of Student Involvement for providing today's lunch. Please eat and be merry. Food for the mind up here, food for the belly and back. Now I would like to thank our judges for volunteering their time today and ask them to please introduce themselves. President Holloway, we'll start with you. Please.
Good afternoon, President Jonathan Holloway. I'm happy to come down to Camden. Doing this in person, I did it last year remotely. It stressed me out incredibly, so I think this will probably be worse, but I'm happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Naomi Marmerstein. I'm the Associate Provost for Faculty Affairs. Thrilled to be here, and I can't wait to hear from you guys.
And I'm John Griffin. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, and I've done this before, so I'm as equally as stressed as the president.
Now, I'd like to welcome the student debaters. Students, will you please introduce yourselves, starting with the team on my left?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Brodsky. I'm a junior political science major.
Hello, my name is Joseph Flesht. I'm a first-year political science and philosophy student.
Hello, my name is King Cohen. I'm a sophomore urban studies and journalism major.
Hello, I'm Zachary Jargowski. I am a senior biology major.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jenna Ahmed. I'm a second-year biology student.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christopher Boyce, and I am a third-year psychology major.
Thank you. Now we'll begin the match. Teams, from this point on, there are no substitutions, consulting with anyone other than your teammates at the table, or reviewing outside materials. Coaches and spectators, please remember that communicating with either team, verbally or non-verbally, is impermissible. Please remain quiet throughout the competition so that the students can concentrate. I'll now flip a coin to determine presenting order. This is the part that stresses me out. Team on my left, do you want to call that heads or tails?
Tails.
The coin is tails. So Hive Mind, you have the option of presenting first or have the other team present first. What is your choice?
We'll be going first.
You'll be going first? Excellent. So Hive Mind, you will present first and are known as Team A. Judges, please note this on your score sheet, that Hive Mind is Team A and Socrates Money is Team B. Now, Berto will distribute a copy of the case to the judges and myself and face down to the teams. Please keep the case face down until we are ready to begin. And I think it's worth noting that not only this case, but all cases for the Ethics Bowl were developed by students participating in this course. Great. The case is marriage of convenience. Marie is an immigrant who left her country for better opportunities and to escape an oppressive government. Marie was able to find work as a home health aide from a company that was willing to sponsor her. She has several elderly clients and she enjoys spending time with them. She especially likes Jerry, a retired pediatrician in his late 70s. Marie is an honest person who works very hard for her money and stays out of trouble. Despite her sponsored employment, Marie wants to be a United States citizen. She never wants to be sent back to her country, where she would likely be persecuted. On Jerry's advice, Marie goes to an immigration lawyer with the hope that he will help her get her papers so she can live a normal life. Every month, Marie pays her lawyer fees on time, and she has been doing this consistently for 2 years. Marie starts to question how long this process should actually take and asks the front desk assistant how long it would be to get the papers. The assistant responded by saying that if Marie is paying everything on time, then at this point in the process, Marie should be receiving her papers soon. A couple months later, Marie still has not received any paperwork for her citizenship process and starts to get more skeptical. Marie's lawyer passes away, and she finds out that he did not start working on her case at all. Marie is devastated. She has lost so much time and money. On top of this, the home health company goes out of business and Marie loses her sponsorship. She is now considered an illegal immigrant, which means that she would face deportation if she tries to file a lawsuit against the law firm. Marie's clients rally to help her and offer to pay her in cash if she wants to keep working for them. Jerry feels responsible for sending Marie to the lawyer. In an effort to help, Jerry offers to marry Marie in order to help with her immigration status. Should Marie get married, or should Marie work illegally until she can save enough money to get a new lawyer? Team A, you now have up to 3 minutes to confer before beginning your presentation. Either team may take notes, but Team A is the only team allowed to speak during this time. Your time begins now. Team A now has 5 minutes to make its presentation. Any member of the team may speak one at a time. Team A will be given reminders when there are 3 minutes and 1 minute remaining. Your time begins now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joey, and I am with Team A, HiveMind. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. I, of course, would like to thank the judges for taking their time out of their day, the moderator, and the opposing team. I would like to introduce our argument, but before I do so, I believe it's necessary to sort of frame this scenario a little bit. There are two primary options in this scenario. She can either continue her work solely and not choose to marry, or she can choose to marry and do with that what she will. So in both case scenarios, and by the way, this marriage would be illegitimate, and it would be out of seeking citizenship, which technically is illegal, and so is working illegally. So in both case scenarios, there is an element of law breaking, and in both case scenarios, there's an element of ambiguity, meaning that we don't know the future consequences in both. So those we can kind of recognize as applying to both sides. With that said, our team would like to argue that Marie should seek out marriage with Jerry for various reasons, and we ground this in various ethical frameworks. And in her time in marrying Jerry, we believe she should also continue her work of taking care of her clients. And so I'm going to begin this with utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is an ethical framework which argues that it's a consequentialist framework which argues that we should value the greatest amount of happiness supplied for the greatest amount of people, meaning distributed as evenly as possible. And so we judge an action based off of whether or not it meets that requirement of as most amount of happiness for most amount of people. In the case scenario of her continuing her work while marrying Jerry, Marie is able to save money. She's able to have her basic needs of safety, security, financial security met, and she's also able to provide for her clients. In this case scenario, all of the important actors in this scenario are taken care of, and the greatest amount of happiness is distributed evenly for all. Now I'd like to pass it off to King. He's going to discuss generally consequentialism.
So to understand consequential ethics, we have to understand how people's consequences play into the decisions that they make. Now, with this specific scenario, we have to understand the positive and negative consequences to the actions that you make. Now, there are many positive consequences to the option of her marrying and then possibly working. Number one, we have to understand that she is safe within her marriage with Jerry. She gets her core needs met, which would be financial, by working while under the protection of a green card marriage, and then her physical safety of not as likely to be being deported under this, seeing as it's slightly more safe to be under the veil of a marriage rather than to just be working freelance and any day ICE can come and knock on your door. That I'd like to pass it.
Yeah, thank you, King. So we've talked a little bit about what is providing the greatest good and why we think the consequences that could come from either decision, why ours specifically is the better and safer option. I now want to take another way and look into a little bit of the relationship ethics at play. So when we're looking at relationship ethics, we want to look at the different relationships that are going on between Marie, her clients, and Jerry, because humans naturally are interdependent of each other. They want to be able to care for each other. We want to support them in any way we can. And this is really important in relationship ethics. So the first relationship is with her clients. Marie has a responsibility to continue to care for her clients, making sure they are well treated, taken care of, and she can continue doing this while under a marriage with Jerry. But I also want to acknowledge another relationship with Jerry in this term of marriage. Marriage is more than just love in some scenarios. While love is important, there is more to it. And one of it is that caring for one another. This is why we don't believe that the marriage is fully wrong, because Jerry still cares for her. There's this care that Marie has for Jerry and Jerry has for Marie. And that satisfies the relationship ethics. So in conclusion, I just want to go through our frameworks again, that we've determined that she should work and marry based off the ethics of utilitarianism, consequentialism, and relationship ethics. Perfect.
Thank you, Team A. Judges, please mark your scores for Team A's presentation. Team B, you now have 3 minutes to confer. Either team may take notes, but Team B is the only team allowed to speak during this time. Team B, you now have up to 5 minutes to make your presentation. Any member of your team may speak one at a time. Team B will be given reminders when there are 3 minutes and 1 minute remaining. Your time begins now.
All right, I'd like to go ahead and start by saying that we agree with the hive mind that illegal does not mean immoral, and that this case is far more about the individual personal limits and comforts of Marie herself as well as Jerry. With that said, we believe that it is more moral for her to simply work and not to engage in the marriage due to both a personhood, ethics of the persons, and virtue ethics standpoint. From the personhood ethics standpoint, the entire concept is to not treat people solely as means to an end, but to treat each individual with dignity and respect. And by marrying Jerry, even if it was on his request for a green card, you would have Marie would be treating him as solely a means to an end, and violating his dignity as well as his right and ability to seek out other relationships, and even as well as her own. She would be chaining herself to something that may be platonic and caring, but not necessarily filled with love. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Jenna for more about virtue ethics.
Hello, my name is Jenna, and I'm going to be talking about the virtue of honor. So if Marie were to engage in this marriage, then she is already coming from a country of oppression and corruption. She's worked hard, and she should continue to provide for herself in the most honest way possible. As a new immigrant who's illegally engaging in a sham marriage, what does this say about her character as someone who would like to be a new U.S. citizen? What does this say about her honor as someone who would like to be a part of this country? She's come from a bad background, and why would she engage in shady behavior in this new country? Now, the other side will argue that the immigration system in our country is warped and it is unfair. And while I do agree, Marie should not bend on her values and bend on the things that she has worked on in the past just because she wants an easy way out or an easy green card. I don't believe that that's ethical in this case. And with that, I will be passing it on to Chris.
Thank you, Jenna. So I'll be discussing the ethics of happiness and some virtue ethics as well. Speaking on the virtue of love, while we recognize that marriage has its utility, we recognize that marriage is a way for people to not only garner resources, but also to escape certain situations that might be hazardous to their well-being as a whole. If you neglect the love, passion, and commitment that exists within a marriage, then as Zach pointed out previously, Marie is using Jerry as a means to an end. She does not take into consideration that he is his own person, and although he did consent to this choice, he is not being seen as an individual. He's being seen as a means to just escape persecution, so to speak. And she's being unfair, not only to the country that she cares for so much, but to herself as a whole, and to all of the virtues that she's built up during this time. That is the virtue of sacrifice and persistence, both of which she would continue to exhibit should she continue to work and not marry, which would also allow her to garner resources as necessary, as opposed to this marriage being found out to be a sham. Her deportation might be imminent anyway if she would marry Jerry, and this should be found out. And speaking also on the ethics of happiness, she would also continue to, as I said before, gather her resources as necessary. She will continue to pay attention to whatever relationships he will continue to form, and her quest for stability, so to speak, is being undermined by her. Her integrity will be undermined by her quest for stability if she continues to fall into this sham married with Jerry. So just to summarize, we do not want Marie to neglect her honor by entering into a sham marriage. We do not want to see Jerry seen as a means to an end. We do not want to see all of Marie's virtues be flushed down the toilet, so to speak, for continuing to use marriage and what institutions we have in America to allow herself to be treated as a person, as simply a person of circumstance, rather than as a person of true character and morality. And with that, we will yield the remainder of our time.
Thank you, Team B. Judges, please write down your scores for Team B's presentation. Team A, you now have 2 minutes to confer for your rebuttal. Team A is the only team allowed to speak during this time. Your time begins now. Team A, you now have 2 minutes to respond to Team B's presentation. Any member of your team may speak one at a time. Team A will be told when you have 1 minute remaining. Your time starts now.
Hello, everybody. Again, I'd like to thank the judges and the moderator, and I'd like to thank the opposing team for their thoughtful arguments. The first point of theirs that we'd like to address is the point of utilizing Jerry by marrying him as means thinking. Now, what means thinking is the idea that within deontology, we value the individual for their dignity and their rationality, and thus using them for some sort of end, using them as means to an end without recognizing that is unethical according to deontologists. However, what is important to note and what was missed out is the fact that it must be solely utilized as means thinking, meaning that within the scenario, there must be no recognition of the persons as an end in themselves, and that is not the case, right? Marie has a strong relationship with Jerry. She values him as a client. He values her as a worker, and in addition to that, they care for each other, right? The means thinking does not have to necessarily be just love. It can also be pure platonic care, right? People get married out of care all the time. So because there is a treating of Jerry as an end in himself and not just a mean, the means thinking argument does not necessarily apply here. Now I'd like to pass it off to Matt to discuss virtue.
Yeah, thank you, Joey. I think this also ties in, they mentioned the virtue of love, and I think comes back to the excellent point that he just mentioned, but love doesn't always equal romantic love. There's different ways someone can love one another, and I think we see that with Jerry and Marie here. There's that love to care for one another through all the years of her taking care of him as he's grown older. I also want to rebut a little bit on the virtue of honor that was mentioned. I think the only concern here with that is that we're comparing the idea of upholding her honor at the risk of her possibly being deported and her safety being in danger because she'd moved to a dangerous country. I don't see that as violating her honor. This is a matter of her protecting herself from not having to go and be endangered. So I don't think her honor's removed. She's still going to be working for herself. She's going to be working independently.
Excellent. Thank you. Judges, please write down your score for Team A's response. Team B, you now have 2 minutes to confer for your rebuttal. Team B is the only team allowed to speak during this time. Team B, you now have 2 minutes to respond to Team A's rebuttal. Any member of your team may speak one at a time. Team B, you will be told when you have 1 minute remaining. Your time begins now.
All right, thank you to HiveMind for their rebuttal, but we would like to talk a little bit about the logistics. For a green card marriage to work, you have to be in a marriage with someone for at least 5 years before that you can dissuade any suspicion of it being an immoral or a sham marriage. Whereas, based on the details of the case, it would take 2 years for her consistently paying lawyer's fees to get her citizenship through a lawyer, meaning that if she is already working, there's no need for her to commit to an extra 3 years of dishonesty to just get the citizenship she's after. And despite there being real care between the two of them, means thinking still applies. And for more on that, I'm going to pass it to Jenna.
I think that the means thinking still applies because Marie came to this country for better opportunities. She's an immigrant that has seen terrible things from her own country, and she wants to come here to start a better life. Now, we don't see any of that coming about if she just hops into a marriage. And the other team has said that the two care about each other. But in this scenario, it doesn't give us that many details that they do adore each other or they do care about each other. It says that they are friends, and it says that they are mutually caring for each other, but I still think that Marie should value her personal dignity based off of the ethics of the person, because if she values her own self-esteem, her own self-worth, she would not be getting into a sham marriage. She would be using Jerry's resources in a different way, in a more ethical way, where she would be able to use the connections that he has to get her a new lawyer. She would be able to use his status in a way that he can help her as a friend.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Judges, please write down your score for Team B's response. We will now have a question and answer session for the judges and the teams, beginning with Team A. The judges will collectively ask one question to each team and, if necessary, can ask one brief follow-up question to each team. Each team will have 1 minute to confer and 2 minutes to respond. Judges, would you like 30 seconds to confer, or are you ready to ask questions now? We'll even give you 35 seconds. Okay, judges, you may begin.
Well, I want to thank, and I think I can speak for my fellow judges, thank you both for those arguments. They were well thought out and well done. I think as a follow-up question that we'd like to ask both teams to answer, as Marie was making her decision, what do consequences play in that decision-making process, knowing that if she's deported, she could be possibly persecuted and worse? What role does that have in making this decision?
Team A? So you may have 1 minute to confer and then 2 minutes to respond. Team A, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Awesome. Okay. First, I would like to thank you for that very thoughtful question. We really appreciate it. But yeah, we do. When we were looking at this dilemma that's in front of us. Consequences do play a big role. I think it's one of the key reasons we chose that she should marry, because when we looked at the consequences Marie might have faced by being deported, she is, one, could be put in danger. As it's mentioned, she was escaping an oppressive government. Who's to say that she doesn't, get harmed upon her return to that country? I think it's also important to note the consequences if she was deported of what happens to her clients. So now her clients who have been relying on her for that care have now been left without a caregiver until at least they can find someone to take that role again. And because of that, her client's health could be seriously damaged in that time of waiting for someone else to take care of them, because we don't know who else can in that meantime. Yeah.
Yes, and I think it's important to note that the consequences of her marrying are far less severe. I mean, okay, the final consequence is deportation for both, of course. However, a marriage is a lot more secure than working under the table. It's been proven that, working under the table is an extremely dangerous and unsafe method of work, seeing as you're always on the run, you're always living in fear, which can lead to mistakes. And then, as well, there's no way of actually knowing how long it will take for her green card to get accepted within the parameters of the scenario. Therefore, you wanna finish it?
With that, that's why we based our scenario, our position around the consequences, considering consequentialism and utilitarianism, and not just ethics of the person, is because we have to consider the scenario in relation to the rest of society.
Thank you. Judges, please score Team A's responses to your questions. And I'd like to confirm you're asking the same question of Team B? Okay. So, Team B, you may have 1 minute to confer. Team B, you now have 2 minutes to present your response.
So thank you so much for the question. It was a great question. Number one, what role does it play? It plays a huge role. When your life is on the line and you're at risk of being persecuted, of course you're going to jump at any life jacket, anything to save your life at that point. But is that the most ethical? That's what we're debating right now. So I believe that our argument is the most ethical in this case because it allows Marie to uphold her self-dignity, her self-worth. It allows for Marie to reach out to her community and help her assimilate better when she becomes a citizen. It also allows her to work hard and reap the benefits that she will sow when she does become a citizen, and she'll finally have that status. And with that, I will be passing it to Zachary.
Secondly, the consequences of our of the simply work solution here is that she's shouldering the consequences on her own. If she were to marry Jerry, as the other team suggests, he also will be liable for prosecution in breaking immigration law if they are found out to have a less than legal marriage.
So to quickly summarize, we recognize that Jerry must also be protected. Again, he is a person that deserves to be considered in this situation. We need to understand that this marriage could negatively affect him. The consequences of that we are unsure, but we do know they could potentially be severe as well, and then nobody is happy. And secondly, if she continues to uphold her virtues of the sacrifice and resilience that has allowed her to continue to provide care for these clients that she's cared for so long, and to work in a country that respects and admires those values, then she's practicing the most ethical character, not just for her, but for the country that she's seeking to represent.
Thank you. Judges, please score Team B's response to your question. Thank you to both teams for a great round. Teams, you can relax for a few minutes while we collect the cases and scrap paper. Berto, if you would. Judges, will you please use this time to write your final score and vote for each team on your tally sheet? while we're waiting, why don't we take a moment to give a round of applause for our finalist teams, for our judges. And then judges, if you've tallied your final scores, what we'd like to ask you to do is to have each of you take a moment to briefly provide feedback to the teams and then share with us which team you will be voting for to win the final round of the Ethics Bowl. No pressure. Dean Griffin, we'll start with you.
Well, again, as I said, I truly appreciated all your answers and the way you put things together. I think this was a very tough case to think about. I think by my follow-up question, our follow-up question, I really wanted to hear more about that, and you both did an excellent response to that question in thinking through that consequence question, which always is the hardest part of, how far will somebody go? So I really appreciate that. I think both of you did a great job of framing your responses to the initial case and the rebuttals, and this was a very hard decision, but am I supposed to announce who I picked?
Yes.
Okay, well, in a very close vote, hive mind, I will give it to you from my vote.
I didn't know I was going to be called on, Michael. You guys both did just great, and my point tally is literally there's a 1 point difference, which is just like really awesome and a little bit upsetting. So starting with Team A, I really liked your discussion of utilitarianism and relationship ethics, and I liked your highlighting of the aspects of caring and caregiving. And also one thing that I liked about yours, but it will lead into yours, was a discussion or the touching on different definitions and approaches to the institution of marriage. So I really like that. Team B, I really liked your discussion of not treating Jerry as a means to an end. That's so important. And I liked your explanation of ethics of the person and virtue ethics. Yeah, in a very, very, very close tally, I am on voting for Socrates Money. Is that your team name? Did I get it right? President Holloway, the tiebreaker.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. So I'm taking presidential privilege in all kinds of ways. I'm going to award a half point, not on the metric here, for Socrates Money for having the most clever name. I'm also going to deduct a half point because it's ethically curious to link easy with money. So it's a wash. Anyway, full credit to both teams for, I'm working backwards here, very respectful dialogue the whole way. I really strongly believe that if people with different opinions actually recognize they share common ground and recognize one another's humanity, we'd be in a very different society. And I think you've modeled that today. So for me, the most important thing is you've modeled actually wonderful ways to disagree. Now, you've also disagreed on on a complicated case dealing with scenarios that we can all easily imagine happening, or maybe even know people to whom this has happened, with whom this has happened. So I admire the fact that you brought sort of a clinical aspect to the analysis as well. Now, I will say that with a little bit of an asterisk, because I do think that hive mind was more successful with me in terms of laying out the taking the ethical questions in a more clinical setting in terms of utilitarianism, consequential is that one, and relationship ethics. I felt that Socrates Money offered a very compelling argument when it came to personhood ethics, virtue ethics, and ethics of happiness. But I will say it felt to me at times that Marie was almost, Marie, that's right, was a victim here, aside from the victim of this theft, but that her morals were being questioned in the first place, which I didn't find the room in that in the argument for a decision she has yet to make. So that part was a little bit tough for me. The thing that I found really fascinating, we had a quick conferral about that in our 34th and 35th second, and I don't have an answer for this at all, but the thinking through the notion of what marriage is. that it is, that we are witnessing as people who are just a couple years older than you, generational differences. We are presuming cultural differences as well about the role of marriage in the society. It is a marital contract, after all, and that can be read in lots of different ways. And the notion, I will claim this for myself only, I'm not speaking for my fellow judges, the notion of marrying for love, I think is a very modern idea, and not something that has deeper roots. Now, what one does with that observation, I don't know, but I do think it speaks to different ways that one could approach resolving this. At the end of the day, impressed with both teams, but feeling that I will not be allowed to say everybody wins here, I side very gently over with Hive Mind.
Well, there you have it. Team Hive Mind has won this match and the 2023 Ethics Bowl. Congratulations to both teams, and thank you for a great match. Can we give one more round of applause for both our teams, our judges, to Berto for keeping us all on time. And I will offer one final reminder that there is plenty of food in the back of the room. If you leave this space weighing less than you did when you came in, mistakes were made. Thank you all for coming out to the Ethics Bowl, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
President Holloway did a good job of building tension on the whole thing. You had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. That was a very, like, American Idol moment. I liked it. Good job. President Holloway, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Nice meeting you as well. You did a nice job today.
Thank you very much.
Oh, wonderful.
They did a great job.
I mean, I read the scenarios before it came over. I'm like, dear God, don't let it be this one. This was of all the nasty ones, like, this one was
I'll take it all.
less stressful than the others.
Well, we do engineer it a little bit, so the really tough ones are the first rounds, and the easier ones. Not easier, but more evenly balanced.
I asked the same question, Matthew.